Good morning, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome and thank you for enrolling to my workshop on day 4. So pleased to have an audience. Okay, I'm Dr. Assam Halawani. I'm coming from Prince Mohammed bin Fahd University in Khobar. And today we are going to talk about a very contentious, interesting issue that usually is addressed within educational institutions in alignment to the Vision 2030. Okay? Now, the concept of leadership is quite provocative. Okay? So don't expect me to pick your minds a bit. All right? To feel confused, it's absolutely fine because nobody still knows what real leadership means. And as educational institutions wants to contribute to that cause, we need to understand what we're talking about. Okay? So the objective of this course, the workshop, is basically to leave you with the right questions, to go back to your own departments, because once you find the right questions, finding the right answers becomes a function in time. You'll eventually get there. Knowing that every specialty might have a different meaning and format for what leadership means, I'll be leaving you with the generic concepts and the right questions, and it's up to you as educators and instructors and professors to be able to forge that into your assessment criteria, into your curriculum, and to your courses. Okay? All right. The agenda looks like that. It sounds a bit busy, and it is, but we'll just whiz through them just to make sure that we are on the same page, because we will be taking 2 breaks in the middle. Sure. First, we will establish what leadership means, because everyone knows what leadership is. Okay? And you will know and you will learn that what you mean about leadership might not be complete. And the more we dig into the literature of leadership, you'll start to realize it's much more complex than we think. Okay? Because what we're worried about is not theory, it's application. So it's going to be, with this coming methodology, I'll raise certain concepts, ask you to do a small exercise to experience the dilemma of answering certain questions. Okay? And you will know that your answers might be different than the person sitting next to you, because your perception about leadership is quite different. And then I'll share with you the leadership and some of the scientific articles that actually investigated that small area. All right? And we'll go through that iteration from exercise to literature and clarification, and then clearing another dilemma, an exercise, another piece of literature, and then we'll go through. Okay? Eventually, we will know and learn and perhaps have a better and clearer idea of how to implement and how to forge student leaders in our universities. And that's the objective, because 2030, Vision 2030 is expecting us to do so. Okay? It is something serious, it is something expected. Okay? Eventually, and at the end of the course, I will be sharing with you 2 case studies that I've applied what I'm preaching into 2 of my courses in the university. And you'll see the results, and you see the difference of having a traditional, conventional, theoretical teaching and knowledge transfer, and purposeful application of strategy and leadership to have and produce student leaders every time. Makes absolute difference. I'm not saying that you need to do what I did. I'm just saying that it can be done. Okay? And that's the ultimate goal of the workshop itself. Okay. Definition of leadership. And this is just a small sample of what leadership is being presented in literature. Sounds like. Researchers believe that leadership is the art and science of managing organizational resources, whether they're tangible or intangible, to generate value and improve organizational output. That is generically what is known to be leadership. And what is tricky and much more complex is to realize that leadership is an art as much as it's a science. And that is where the contentious issue lies. You can replicate success if you are scientific, but replicating success in intangible phenomenon and artistic skill is very difficult, because art is connected to behavior, behavior is connected to human beings whom are different, coming from different backgrounds, having different upbringings, coming with their own a priori baggage, emotional and historical baggage. Each individual artistically is differently prepared. So we need to realize that, okay? Also, there is agreement that leadership is a trait, skill, and capability. Now this is very contentious because there are some people who believe that leadership can be transferred genetically. Okay? And there are a certain group of researchers who believes that no, it is acquired. So what it is? What is it? Why is it important to question that? Because it's our job to train students to be that. So is it genetically transferred or is it acquired by training? It's a discussion, it's an argument. There isn't a clear answer. Also, it's known to be leadership is the attempt to influence others to achieve goals. In reality is having the person who inspires peers, leadership, other peers and subordinates to allocate and mobilize resources to go my way. And that is the tricky part. You need to inspire people to move where you want to move. Now, how can you convince them to do so? This is the challenge, because you might be trained, you might have all the resources, but if your subordinates or team refuse to follow you, it's pointless. Okay? So it becomes very tricky. Now, this is just as a first cut. I'll give you the exercises and then share with you the literature, and then you realize how complex this can be. For us to think of an educational institution like a production line, we need to produce student leaders, successful student leaders that could contribute to the Vision 2030 every time. And that is very, very ambitious and very difficult. But that doesn't mean that we cannot try it. That doesn't mean that we need to start doing that, because this is what competitive education is about. This is what Vision 2030 is expecting us to produce. If we ignore it, then it's not going to be what the direction of this country is going. So we need to produce student leaders that contribute to the economy, to the society, and to the competitiveness of this nation. Okay? And that's the ultimate goal. All right. Let's dig in a bit deeper into what leadership is. And now we're categorizing them as a trait. Okay? There are three categories of traits when it comes to leadership: physical traits, cognitive traits, and personality traits. Physical traits include physique, gender, communication, and interpersonal skills. Why is this important? Because there is scientific research that believes that tall individuals are perceived to be better leaders. Believe it or not. Of course, I don't belong to this population, and I don't care. Okay? But it happens. Tall individuals are perceived to be better leaders for some reason. And that is proven by science. And we need to understand the rationale behind that. Is it a factor that influences what a leader should look like? Factor number 2, gender.
Churchill was not a tall person.
Sorry?
Churchill, John Churchill.
Oh yes, I know.
Sure.
There are exceptions. But science says
Napoleon.
Tall people perceived.
Napoleon.
Oh, yeah, I understand. But perceived, perception is very tricky. If you are faced with a shorter person, are you automatically perceiving them as good leaders or not? Perhaps it's intimidation. Tall, strong, big, okay. I should do what they do. And that is the mindset of a human being. Okay? And it's very interesting to know that it has an effect. The other contentious factor when it comes to physical traits, gender. Till this moment, there are articles reporting gender as an effect of leadership. In some conservative societies, men are always perceived to be better leaders than women for some reason. Okay? And there is some scientific research that, I'm not saying, I said conservative societies. So, hey, you know what I'm trying to say, and it's real. Okay? Now, we're fortunate that the leadership of Saudi Arabia is paving the road for female students to lead. Okay? Now, we need to be ready for this.
Female students get better grades than male students.
Oh, yeah, I understand. But does grades, oh, I understand. But see, does grades mean leadership? This is what we're talking about.
They can do it.
I understand. But is grades meaning leadership? Students who graduate with 4.0 GPAs are by default good leaders? No. Now this is what we're trying to say here. We need to separate these two. We need to produce good leaders. Grades is a different story. And we'll make the distinction in this workshop. By the end of the day, you'll know exactly what you're focused on. If they're good grades, that's fine, but that's a different form of leadership. There's a different kind. And we need to be mindful and we need to be purposeful. So backward engineer that into our courses, curriculum, in our own department, in the way we see fit to produce what we want and ultimately what the economy wants. All right? One of those elements that I'll be talking about is what does the Saudi industry needs. Nobody cares if we think that we're producing quality, because who judges the quality of production? The customer. That's it. Nobody cares if your process is of good quality and efficient and cost effective. Nobody cares. If your customer says that it's not that as good as you think, it's not good. So you might as well know what the customer wants, and in this case the industry, backward engineer that and make sure to meet the expectation, if not exceed them every time. And that's the challenge. Okay? I know that some of what I'm going to say is going to show some discrepancy of what we do and how we're supposed to behave. So please bear with me and receive that certain level of, let's say, criticism in an open mind, because what we're trying to do is to perfect what we do. Okay? All right. So, physical traits, cognitive traits, the process within the minds of our students. Okay? How can they process information? Because that's an important trait in a leader. You can't have a leader who don't know how to process information. So we worry about the cognitive capabilities of our students, which might include mental strength, foresight, decision making, absorptive capacity, their ability to absorb what you give them. Okay? Analytical skills, problem solving skills, and critical thinking, which we are going to dig in deeply, because there's a high correlation in science between leadership and critical thinking. Do we know what we mean by critical thinking? Are we ready to handle critical thinking? Because it's important to leadership. We'll talk about that in depth in the coming slides. Personality traits, risk takers versus risk averse. Risk takers, students who want to take risks to grow, to change. Entrepreneurs are expected to be risk takers. You can train them all day for 4 years to be risk takers, but if they don't like to be risk takers, it doesn't work. Where is this coming from? And that's the question, because we want to promote risk takers, yeah? We want to promote change, but can we train them to be risk takers? Eventually it boils down to personality. I don't want to be a risk taker. And you don't know why, you don't know how. You know that they're supposed to meet that expectation, but you don't know how to replicate it. So it's tricky. Okay? Personality. Empathy. Big concept. You can tell people to be empathetic, but when it comes to application, I don't know. You can train them to be, let's say, sensitive to how they deliver their critique and understand their subordinates' hardship to deliver a job, but in reality, it's not guaranteed. So where does empathy come from? It's personality. So, and we need to make that distinction. Why are we breaking these traits? Because we want to know where they are coming from. We want to know if we can reproduce them. We want to make sure that if we can train our students to be them, okay? So when they graduate with the best qualities and the best traits that enables them to be better leaders, okay? And mind you, the majority of the concepts are arguable, and that's the beauty of it. Leadership is part of strategy, and strategy is always gray. It's not black, it's not white, it's gray. And that's why it makes it so interesting and beautiful. All right? So we're talking about empathy, emotional intelligence and maturity, tolerance to stress. This is an interesting personality. Some students do not like to work under stress. Okay? Now, but leaders need to function within stress. They need to thrive because of crisis. This is where they come in. This is where you see them shine. Now, you can train students all year to work under stress. But when it boils to hunting for a job, like for example, a sales job that requires them to push and keep pushing to achieve the target and exceeding the targets, and if they don't achieve the target, they get fired. Some students do not like this kind of stress, but they are certified, they are trained, they have a degree in business administration, they have multiple certificates in communication and negotiation skills, but they don't want to work under pressure. They don't want the stress. Where is this coming from? Personality. Okay? Now, the complex part is each and every one of us have a different combination of this. The permutations of every variable in these key traits will create a different trajectory of leadership. You see what I'm trying to say? Each trait, consider each trait as a variable, and there is intensity to it, degrees, and it changes. And every students have a different level in every trait, which leads them to be different leaders. Okay? Now, what decides which trait, which level, which intensity? Researchers actually gave us some advice on the contingency factors. The contingency factors that controls the selection of what kind of trait in which level could be led by these. Followers' readiness. Okay? If you have a group of people, all peers, and you have nominated yourself to be the leader, and your peers refuse that, you will not be a leader. Yeah? Makes absolute sense. So it has to be democratic, and it has to be skill-based. All right? And there's a wise man says, you will only lead when you're allowed to lead. Okay? Because they could actually destroy your chances, your followers could destroy your chances of becoming a successful leader. All right? So followers are important contingency factors on what type of leaders you're going to be, and the level of success a leader will achieve as a result.
Maybe not all of the followers will be ready for have readiness to your.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what are you going to do? Absolutely. And that is very important. Knowing that, okay, I was appointed by the vice president, I'm your leader, listen to me. No. Because, they can pretend. And this is where human beings comes in. This is where hidden agendas comes in. This is where, a lot of let's say, behavioral discrepancy are put forward. Especially when you have mixed gender environment. I have a boss as a female. Would you take it? You see what I mean? Or a supervisor supervising all females. How would that work?
Very nice.
Do you see what I mean? Can you be empathetic to a team of all females? Do you see how tricky and provocative this can be? Now, what about the other way around? Especially now, you have female CEOs, CFOs, CXOs. Okay? Would you, as a male, competent, smart, intelligent, and trained, willingly be led by a female leader? You can, if they give you a survey, you say yes. But in reality, there is a different story. See what I mean? So hidden agendas, because we're human. And we all have hidden agendas. Now what we want to do is to make sure that our students are capable of functioning in such environments. And we need to make sure that they are ready to change and learn, because nobody's born a leader. Okay? It comes in percentages. So let's carry on. Sure.
As you said, this leadership, most of leadership is dependent on person's personality. Okay? So is there...
not most. Not most. Okay.
There are many variables.
Sure.
So what I was thinking, is it okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So is it okay if we make a scale, or is it possible to make a scale,
Okay?
like we make scales for so many things,
Absolutely.
to quantify a person's ability to being a leader?
Well, researchers are still struggling because nobody still know exactly what it means. You can have a scale, okay? Are they good leaders? It depends, what do you mean by leaders? Knowledgeable? Skillful? What skill are you talking about? Soft? Hard? Technical? It gets really complicated. And trust me, by 2-3 slides from now, you realize, I don't know what it is. It's too complicated. All right? So yes, what you're saying is true, but nobody knows the scale. You can come up with your own scale, but it can be easily argued because it's too complex. The phenomenon is too complex. All right? Now, we said the follows readiness. The second contingency factor, organizational structure. The power structure within the organization the student is working in or the potential leader is working in. Is it centralized or decentralized? Is the student working in, or the graduate working in an organization where it's a one-man show or one-woman show, sorry. One man or woman show. So you can have all the titles in the world in your organization structure, but eventually everybody's a nobody. It's one man's decision, centralized. Or decentralized, well, you have leaders and delegation and proper chain of authority. Now this level could impact what kind of a leader a student can be. If they have good leadership skills, motivated and knowledgeable, and they want to change, but they are placed and working in a centralized organization, they will not function as leaders because they're nobody. They will never be given the opportunity to say, I'm sorry, I have another option, maybe there's another solution. Do you see these things? If it's a centralized organization like the military, there some of the soldiers come and stand to the general and say, I'm sorry, I have another opinion.
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Jail if it's military. And if it's a commercial sector, it's about time to get fired. You see what I mean? So if it's a centralized power structure, that impacts what kind of a leader a student graduate will be. Okay? Or not. If it's decentralized, it's more nurturing. If it's centralized, it's not nurturing. Some organizations are different like people. Some of them are friendly and accepting and welcoming, and some of them are military. Okay? We are going to talk about these details in much more extensive depth, and then you realize this is too complex. All right? But what I wanted to do is not to complicate life, and I don't want to confuse you. I just wanted to realize that it is vague, but it can be done. Okay? And we should not be misinterpreting good grades with leadership skills. That's what's important. Because the traditional way is, that's the only criteria of measure for any student. Good grades, oh, they're going to be leaders. If they're placed in a centralized organization, they're gone. They're just a note or a simple gear in the machine. Nobody cares. You see what I'm trying to say? Okay? Adopted management style. Top down, bottom up, or as Nonaka Takeuchi say, bottom down up. Different management styles can impact the leadership skills of a graduate. Okay? It depends on the organization. And that is a very important contingency factor. Organization norms and values. What is acceptable in an organization, what's not. Similar to any organization, you have the vice president coming in or the president giving a speech, giving instructions. Is it normal for anyone in the crowd to stand, I'm so-and-so working in that department? I think the decision that you made is not effective and it will create issues more than it solves problems. Otherwise, if you don't listen to what I have to say, it will cost us more. Does the organization welcome this kind of behavior? Maybe, maybe not. It depends. I'm not saying it's all military style. I'm just saying that it depends. If the organization is welcoming or not. There's a range. So as the leadership skills look like a continuum and a scale, organizations' ability to welcome that also has a scale. Multinational companies, they thrive on critical thinking. Okay? This is part of their DNA. You will not be accepted as an employee if you don't have critical thinking and you have that skill. I'm sorry, there's another option. You're always thinking and pushing the benchmark upward. And some organizations do not want to welcome that. So organizations are different, so as the leaders. All right, exercise number 1. Okay, in the pieces of paper that you have in front of you. Okay, I will not collect the answers. I just want you to do the effort and take the papers with you to your own departments. Question number 1. Try to answer that either individually or in groups. I don't mind. Genetic gift versus acquired skill. We're talking about leadership. Is it genetically gifted or is it an acquired skill? What do you think? And mind you, there's no right and wrong to these answers. There's one way and another way. So be free to think, okay? Because every one of us is coming from a different background, with a different training, from a different culture, okay? Even in homes. And I don't want to comment a lot on the family role on leadership. We're going to touch that very sensitively, but it has a place. So you have a family of medical doctors. All of them are becoming medical doctors. Their students and their children are becoming medical doctors. What are we trying to say here? Maybe. And sometimes you find the most successful people in organizations, all right? Entrepreneurs. And you look at their spouse, absolute failure. What's happening? It happens, yeah? It happens. So what is it? Is it genetically gifted or is it an acquired skill? 2, is theoretical training of leadership sufficient to develop the result aspired to? What do you think? Okay, write your answers to the piece of paper, and I'll give you 2 minutes to do that, and then we'll take 2 answers from the ladies and 2 answers from the gentlemen to have a, let's say, a discussion. And it's going to be amusing, trust me. It's very interesting to hear thoughts. Number 3, is the gap between theory of leadership and practice existing? The never-ending dilemma of academia trying to prove itself with the industry, and the industry thinking that all professors are talking in the clouds. Giving theories that are impossible to understand and most importantly impossible to apply. Is this the case with leadership? Tell me what you think. All right? So quickly, I'll just give you maybe 1 or 2 minutes because we started late, and then we'll take quick answers from both sides. Keep those papers with you. Go back, and I hope that they will be embedded within your subconscious. You will sleep on them, and you will dream about answers. And the next day, you'll go back to your departments giving up initiative, okay? Taking initiative to change towards that cause. All right? Let's go. Yes.
I believe that leadership is mostly an acquired skill.
Okay.
I think that both personality traits along with cognitive traits can be trained.
Okay.
Well, in terms of physical traits, beyond what we are.
Yep.
Right? Men, women, we look the way we look, but we can definitely develop certain communicative skills that can close the gaps between the other 2 features that may work against us.
Okay. Good. Another answer from the female? Yes, please. Yes.
It says that it's a genetic gift or acquired skill. I believe that it's both.
Okay.
However, genes can be suppressed and activated by environmental factors.
External factors, heat, pressure, external factors that force the process of natural selection. Maybe. Do we have a gene for leadership? I would love to know that. Maybe. Hey, we don't know. We don't have the technology. Yeah. No, nobody knows. Do you see what I mean? I would love it for science to progress to that level so we can actually act like mad scientists, genetically engineering our students. Wouldn't that be nice? Or maybe just a movie. So we're going to take another one for me. Okay, gentlemen. Sorry? Mostly acquired. Okay.
I'm citing myself as an example.
Okay.
In the elementary, I used to be the head student.
Okay.
I was mentored
Yes.
what to do, and how to conduct the student.
Yes.
In the college, I was the head student again.
Okay.
In the university, I was the president of the medical school.
Okay.
And then at the national level,
Yes.
I chaired the committee board, and international
Yes.
level, I'm a director for education
Okay.
and the African medical student.
Okay.
Also, I used to be the director social for the Islamic Society of Nigerians in the UK.
Okay.
for 5 years.
All right. Okay.
I know I was mentored.
Okay.
I was told what to do, how to do, and I learned from the good leaders.
Yeah.
Nobody was born a leader, but people become leaders because of the mentorship thing.
Okay.
We need to give our students
Yes.
the kind of leadership expected by the industry in the 21st century, because it's
Okay.
very, very good.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. But again, does that mean that those who do not receive proper mentorship have no chance of becoming leaders? Do you see what I'm trying to say? So I don't know. Is it mentor-based? Is it an acquired skill that if you receive the right coaching and training throughout time and throughout your life, you'll become a good leader, which is that basically you're an engineered leader. That doesn't mean that there are people who has nothing from deprived places, knowledge-based, economical-based, and very, very poor areas don't have that ability to think outside the box and break the mold. Maybe, maybe not. You see what I'm trying to say? So yes, there are many cases that you have leaders engineered to be leaders. And you have many cases that hardship, heat, pressure, deprivation actually helps the process of natural selection and allow that individual to evolve and become somebody that are not trained to be. Nobody expected that student to be a leader someday. Their grades were wishy-washy, an average student. Once they graduate, for some reason, they've unlocked the magical gene and they end up somewhere nobody expected them to be. That's very interesting. For us, it's important to know the correlation. Where is this coming from? And if we learned where is it coming from, maybe we can replicate it. Maybe. And that's what we're trying to do, as in educational institutions. Yeah? Okay. Question number 2. Theoretical training, does it help? Is it sufficient to develop leadership skills? What do you think? No? So if we brought a group of students and we gave them an intensive course in what is leadership, what are the theories, how do you behave, how does a good leader behave, would that change them? Would that enable them to become leaders? Or maybe influence their evolution, maybe? Perhaps? Sorry? Okay. All right, so it motivates them to move towards that direction. Okay. Oh. Okay. There are leaders by choice. So it's coming from inside. Okay. Now we're talking about something else. Yes. They need guidance. Absolutely. But it's initiated from within. Perhaps that's what we mean by genetic gifting. They have it within them.
To the first question,
Sorry?
The second question, just take us back to the first question.
I know.
Which is nature versus
Nurture, the all-time dilemma.
Yes, and all studies coming from educational philosophy and teaching special ed,
Yes.
disabilities and giftedness.
Yes.
We could never say that giftedness by itself is caused by nurture just because of good
Absolutely.
teaching and good school
Absolutely.
and good environment.
Yeah.
Or is it genetic coming from the person themselves?
Mhm.
So I think it's the same with leadership. There has to be, like what the most studies agreed on,
Yeah.
even with this argument going on, that we need both. We need
Yeah.
genetics, we need something that coming from person himself, the readiness, and we need the environment to just make it grow more.
Absolutely. It's a combination of both, but nobody knows which is the prevalent side, because we want to make them, we want to manufacture them, as mad as this might sound for an educational institution, but it's not as easy as we think. Some of them are genetically ready, personality ready, and they requires, all that they need is a bit of guidance and training, and then they shine. Some of them have no intention to become leaders. Once they're giving the training, then they become aware of it. And some shine without training, by experimentation, trial and error. It takes them longer, but eventually they reach their destination as good leaders. So there's no clear answer to this. Number 3, the gap between theory and practice. Now we can only refer to scientific evidence. We rely on scientific evidence to understand the world. But this dilemma is still existing. The gap between theory and practice. So if we, as educational institutions, supply the students with the proper theoretical training, would that help in practice? Would the industry appreciate that? Would they see our student being ready to lead? If the gap still exists, then what's the point? How can we make our students ready to assume higher positions in organizations? It's a question, all right? It's challenging, all right?